Hi, welcome to my second video on creating a social presence. Now again, this is something very much like the strategy where I'm not saying that people get it wrong or that people don't do it correctly, but a lot of people just don't realise that setting up a social presence is really key to your business and to growing your business online. So what we'll cover in this video is what to include in your social presence, how to become a media presence, and that's really important, how this fits in with your business, again critical, aligning your goals with your business. If you don't have goals in your business, then I have to say you really are struggling, and that's something that you really do need to address today. And the last thing is the types of media to use and why. And again, like I said in the last video, this is really quite critical, because what tends to happen is that people or businesses just get too wrapped up in it and don't spend the time wisely. So we really need to decide what we're going to do with this. So what to include in your social presence, and again, this can be really difficult for people or businesses to really get their head round. And these are just some of the elements that I use in my business. Blogging, and I'm a prolific blogger. It's really 2 or 3 times a month if I can possibly manage it. Video production like this, and some of the video production is really quite complicated and complex, and a lot of the video, I have to say probably a good 60-70% of it is like this. It's really easy to do and really easy to produce. Podcasting, now I have to say I don't really do this that much. Sometimes when I'm doing a video like this, I'll take the elements out, or I'll make an MP3 and put it on the website. But podcasting, I have to say, isn't something that I do that regularly, but I know a lot of people that do podcasting and it works really well for them, so don't discount it. Newsletters, now like we said in the last video, this is something that I love. I just love sending out newsletters. My list is probably the most important element of anything that I do as regards online marketing, and it should be exactly the same for you. Ebooks and books, now I've put in brackets these are on the web. I do have a couple of ebooks that's on the website, but what I am planning later on this year is to write a book on social marketing, and once I do, obviously then you guys will be the first to know. Photos, this is something else that's really quite important, and now with infographics and Instagram, Pinterest, it's really important that you do take good quality photos and use them in a really good way. Social content like Facebook, LinkedIn, Google Plus or Twitter, and again, think about updates, think about the strategy that we talked about in the first video. And these are probably, other than podcasting, are elements that I use pretty much on a daily basis. So how do you become a media presence? Well, my belief has always been that media has long been a primary tool for selling. Newspapers and magazines are built to sell ads, and that's one of the reasons. If you look in a newspaper, the stories really just support the ads. A lot of people, I think, they still do tend to believe that this can be the reverse, and that's okay, because a lot of people think that. I think radio and television did the same, and I think those places, I think radio and television is still quite effective in pushing out a message, but I think that's the most important thing. It is that it's pushing out a message. And I think one of the things that social media and social media marketing has done over the past few years, it's more of a pull mentality now. The mentality is that you pull people who are interested in you towards you. And that's the great thing about creating a media presence, is that this is really it's really super easy to do. It's one of the easiest things to do online. Because it's a push and not a pull mentality now, we have to look at what's working and what's not. And again, I think you look at newspapers and you look at radio, and they do seem to be on the decline, which is such a shame, because I worked in the newspaper industry and it was a great industry to be in. But I think a lot of the newspaper industries and a lot of the radio stations now are just, the strategy is just so wrong. It's, quite frankly, it's embarrassing. They still think that what was happening in 2002, 2003 still works today, and unfortunately it doesn't, because what you can't do, you can't just push your message continually. You've got to use that pull mentality. And once you start to use that pull mentality, and once you start to engage with your community and with your tribe, then that's when all this really does start to work. So for me, I think that the push mentality definitely doesn't work anymore. It certainly doesn't. But I think the pull and the inclusive mentality works an absolute treat, and that's something that I'm a great advocate of. I think that it's something that every business should do, and have that mentality, and it should be really it should be second nature now. It shouldn't really be something that you've got to think about. One of the things that I did with this, which was really sort of early on, was that I thought about the magazines that I buy, and I want you to think about the magazines that you buy, the physical magazines that you buy out of shops, and why do you buy them? And I think a lot of it is, I mean, I'll give you an example. I read two magazines regularly, and that's Rhythm and What Hi-Fi, and that's because I read Rhythm. It's a drummer magazine because I am a drummer and I play in a couple of rock bands. And What Hi-Fi is something. It's a passion of mine. Hi-Fi has always been a passion of mine. It's something that I really, really love. But what I really love about something like Rhythm is the interviews with other drummers and finding out what their life is like, both on and off the road. What kit do they use? Why do they use it? That's one of the great things about magazines, is because it's niche specific. It's targeted at a certain audience. And that's really what we've got to start thinking about is, what does your audience, what does it want? What does it look like? Because I think one of the things for me is that when you are thinking about your community and your tribe in a magazine type way, then I think that's one of the things that really it comes across, because it comes across that you really know what it is that they want. And that's the same with magazines. The thing that I really like about What Hi-Fi, the magazine's laid out really well, the typography is really good. And again, because I worked in the publishing industry, I know that it works really, really well, and that's one of the things that I probably wouldn't change about any of the magazines, the typography and the way that it's laid out. And that's what you've got to think about with your website. With such as Google Plus and Facebook and LinkedIn, they're social channels. That isn't your website. Think about your website as purely a magazine. If you use something like WordPress, which in the last video we went through, but if you use something like WordPress, then there's lots of themes that you can get that you can make your website look like a magazine. And then it starts to portray that you're really thinking about your niche, because basically all you're giving them, your community, your tribe, is the information that they're craving. That's really the most important thing for me. It's giving them the information that they need. Really what it does is it addresses all their pain points. And it's even though for something like Rhythm, there's interviews with other drummers, there's interviews about what life's like on the road. There's also practical things in there, like, how to set your kit up properly, how to mic it up when you go to a gig. There's lots of practical things in there. So think about your website, even your social channels, as a help guide, if you like. For me, these videos are a help guide, because basically what I'm doing with you today is taking you through how you can basically become a publishing company, how you can think about it, how you can implement it in your business. And that's one of the great things, because we don't have to have a million or a squillion quid to set up a big massive publishing company, like the Times or Johnson Press or something like that. We can set up for peanuts. That's one of the great things about it. For 100 quid you can be up and running in no time, because WordPress is free. Again, I've got a program that can take you through how to build a WordPress site. But the great thing about it is, because it does cost so little, you can get it up and running, within a couple of days. And that's the fantastic thing about it, is that it doesn't cost an awful lot of money. It just costs pennies, really, when you think about it. But when we think about magazines and we think about radio and television and where they sort of sprang from, and the advertising that was spawned out of them, really, because that's where they first started from, was they were really just advertising magazines. They were full of adverts, and then stories crept in, and then they were changed into what we see as newspapers today. But one of the things about social media and social media, how it's changed the whole landscape of publishing and what people can do, is just immense. It's like virtually it's our industrial revolution. But here's a sobering thought, and it's one of those things that unless you've actually heard it or you've seen it in print, it's really, really difficult to get your head round. But it actually took 38 years for 50 million people to gain access to radio. It then took television another 13 years to get the same audience. And this is the thing that's really, really striking, and something that it took a long time for me to get my head round. It took Instagram 18 months to get 50 million people as an audience. And that's an absolute staggering thought, that it only took 18 months. So, what I would ask you is, where do you think your audience is hanging out? And I think that's the key message to this, is that your audience is online. It's not in newspapers, and it's probably not in magazines. If it is, then I can pretty much guarantee, like Rhythm and What Hi-Fi, that magazine will also be online. It will also have a Facebook presence. It will also have a Twitter presence. To me, is the key point. You know, I follow Rhythm, and I follow What Hi-Fi on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Google+. So if you're acting like if you're representing your business as a magazine, as a publishing company, then basically mirror what they do, just model what they do. And I think that's one of the great things is, I found out years and years ago that if you model someone who's successful, don't copy them, just model them, find out what works for them, and then apply it to your business, because you can't do, I couldn't model another social marketing person, even if they were really successful, because I'm not them. I couldn't copy them. I could model them and find out what they do and how they do it. And that's the thing for your business. There will be somebody out there that you can model, especially when it comes to social media and social media marketing, because it's all online. So have a look at who your competitors are. Have a look at who your community are, and then start to model and start to look at how you can make the best of what you've got online. I mean, I'll help you as much as I possibly can through videos and through the programs that I have, like the Social Marketing Blueprint and my WordPress in a Box program. They're all there designed to get you up and running quickly for, not much money, and that's the great thing about it. But probably what you've got to start to think about, once you've got all that in your head, then you've got to start to think about what a magazine would look like for your business. And again, this is where we get down to the modeling side of it. How would your business look? How would it start to operate? How quickly could you have it up and running? That's one of the great things about this, is because, like I said before, like I said earlier, and I don't want to repeat myself, is that it takes a small amount of time and actual peanuts to get it up and running. So that's one of the great things. Think about what a magazine would look like for your business. How would you lay it out? What would you include in it? Because you look at the front page of a magazine and it's usually a big headline and a big image. Think about that on the web. I know we've also got to think about SEO and things like that, but my own personal opinion, I think it's becoming less and less important now. I know there's people that would strongly disagree with me, but I think if you've got a presence on Google Plus and you've got a presence on the web, with a website, then I think SEO is becoming less and less, because you can link the two. Once you've got authorship on your Google Plus page or profile and your website, then again, I think SEO is getting less and less important. But again, as I said, I don't want to upset anybody. But unless they can prove otherwise, shove a comment in the box below, and that would be brilliant. So, how does this fit in with your business? People think, well, I have work to do. I haven't got time to create a magazine. It could take months. But the thing is, maybe you do, because you only have to listen to, so-called gurus online, and they're telling everyone you've got to get on social media or you've got to start a blog. I tell everybody and anybody who'll listen to me that newsletters are really the way to do it. One thing that a lot of people don't do, they aren't really explaining how that can fit into your marketplace or how it can fit into your niche. Now, one of the things that we do cover in the Social Marketing Blueprint is how you can set this up, how you can set up your goals and your outcomes and everything else. And this little image, these little blocks that are part of that. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to really skim over this, because this is it's just far too much detail to go into here. We haven't got time for that. But again, like I said, it's in the main program. So if you're interested in that, by all means, sign up. But really, these blocks, when you're first setting off on starting a social presence, they should be filled out weekly. And pretty much what you've got to do is you've got to answer these questions. What is the goal or the outcome that you seek? And that's really important. How will you measure that goal or outcome? Which tools and resources will you use to get there? What are your intentions while working on this? What's the actual plan that you'll follow? Again, really important. what problems will come up, and that again, you've got to think about any sort of problems that you might have. How will you address those problems? Because again, that's critical. You've got to address any problem that comes up within your business, and which actions will you take to solve those problems? And you've got to list these like really, really clearly. Like I've said, this is just a small snapshot, so I don't want to get into this because we do cover it in greater detail in the Social Marketing Blueprint course. But this is something that you've got to ask yourself continually, well, weekly, what your goal is, what your outcome is. Your A list, your procrastination list, and your Media Hub list. The Media Hub list we're going to get into in the next video, in the third video of this series. So we'll cover that in a little bit of detail. We won't cover it in a massive amount of detail because again, it's all inside the course. So think about this. I'll leave this on the screen for a little bit longer, but it's something that you've got to do weekly. And one of the things when I came up with this, when I started to really think about this, was because a lot of the tools and resources weren't there. You know, there was Facebook and everything wasn't there. This is a list from a long time ago. This will probably be pre-2006. So think about it. Think about your A list. Think about your procrastination list. Your procrastination list basically is just the stuff that you hate doing. Write it down. Your A list is 20 people, like celebrity list, your authority list, who you've got to speak to at least on once a day, because that's they're the people that will actually push your stuff. So think about it. And as I said, we'll cover the Media Hub in greater detail in the next video. So why the magazine approach? Well, when I was involved in publishing, people sold stuff by literally standing beside their product or hanging a sign outside their business, and still do. I mean, there's still signs outside the shops. People still stand beside their products. It's like on market stalls and things like that. But basically what they have to wait for people to come in. They have no choice. You can put boards outside, you can have people outside with flyers and things like that, but at the end of the day, you still, other than dragging them in physically, you're literally just waiting for them to come through your shop door. And that's one of the things that social media and social media marketing, it really just alleviates. Because I think one of the things was, I mean, when you think about it, when advertising came along, I mean, when it first came along, it came along as standalone flyers and leaflets. And to be honest, and it's a sad fact, I would say they were thrown away pretty much the same way as we throw them away today. And I don't think that will ever change. I think that's always going to happen. I think people will throw flyers and leaflets away. I think it's just I'm not sure that it works. And again, put a comment in the box below if you disagree, and tell me why you disagree and any proof that you've got. But I think because it was good enough to sell newspapers and magazines and radio and TV shows, it worked to a certain degree. And I think even later on, people learned about direct mail. Then it's really changed from direct mail and things like that into just a game changer when the internet showed up. You know, because then we had email marketing, we had social networks, we have blogs, we have Instagram, we have Pinterest, you name it. It's out there now. So the actual magazine approach, this is something that works really, really well. And I think one of the great things about this approach is it's like I've said before, and I'll keep saying it throughout this video, it's a pull mentality. It's not a push. You're not pushing flyers out to them. You're pulling it in. Let your competitors do that. If you probably find that your competitors, all they're doing is just push, 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 and that's all they'll do because they think that's the way that it actually works, and it doesn't. The way that this works really, really well is if it's a pull mentality. But the only way that it works, and again I've said this for years and years now, probably since 2006, 2007, is that you've got to create a magazine that covers your buyers' big interests. And that's the thing that makes this really, really worthwhile, that it's got to cover your buyers' big interest, because if it doesn't, they're not going to buy. It's as simple as that. If I buy Rhythm, I'm looking for a new set of sticks for a gig that's coming up in a week's time, then that's what I'll look for. But what I can tell you is I'll look through the magazine, but I'll actually buy them online. The days of people ringing up, unless it's something really specific or something really expensive, like a new snare drum or a cymbal or something like that, then I'll definitely call. But if it's something like a 10 quid pair of sticks, then no, I'll just book them. I'll just buy them off the internet. I think then the question is, you've got to really think about how you can better integrate all the moving parts, and the moving parts are things like YouTube, Facebook, Google Plus. I think that's one of the great things about this, is because, especially with something like WordPress, because there's lots of plugins that you can put in that cover a lot of this. The layout of it is really, really critical. And again, look at the magazine that you like the most, and just follow their layout. There's nothing wrong with that. Look, see how they do it online. Like I said before, I think about modeling and how it models that, and just make your site and construct your site in that sort of image. Like I've said, don't copy, because copy is wrong. That's just plagiarism, and it's nicking stuff, and that's something that you just shouldn't do. And I think one of the great things about this, if you find the magazine of your choice, like for me, the physical magazine is Rhythm, but online the website doesn't work that well. And again, I go back to what I said earlier on, is that a lot of magazines are still getting this wrong, but there isn't any reason why you should. They're still using the old push mentality, and they're still applying the same principles that they applied in 2003, 2004, which is basically they just reconstitute a lot of the ads from the magazine or the newspaper and put them online, and that's just something that you shouldn't do, because it looks absolutely terrible and just pulls your publication down. So think about creating a magazine that covers your buyer's big interest. Think about your marketplace, think about the niche that you're actually in, and then start to build from there. That's the one thing. The last video was strategy. This now is how really to start to build a publishing magazine online, and that's what you've got to do. But again, don't think that it's difficult. It's not. There's lots of ways that you can do it, and just ask in the box below, and I'll put you on the straight and narrow if I can. So what types of media do I use, and why? Well, there's lots of things that I use, and like we said before, we've touched on a few of them. And for me, my media checklist really is blog posts, and I try for one a week, but it's usually once every 2 weeks, because I'm so busy and I'm creating lots of content, to go online. So there's, I generally look at 2 weeks. A lot of the blog posts that I rehash and add into Google Plus. Now, I have I did have an automated feeder called Friends Plus Me that syndicates everything out to my other social media channels, and I'm actually running a test now. It could be that by the time you see this video, the test has changed and I've gone back to Friends Plus Me, but at the moment, as we speak now, I'm actually running a test to see what works the best. And I've got a feeling that I'm pretty much convinced that if you craft a post for Google Plus and you craft a post for LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, then you're going to get a lot more engagement. You're going to get far more engagement, rather than just do one on Google Plus and have something like Friends Plus Me just push it out to everyone. And again, I'll use that word push, because that's basically what it is. We're not thinking about it anymore. We're just pushing content out. So once the results are in, which is very X-Factorish, I suppose, once they're in, I'll let you know. I'll publish them either on the website or on one or all of the social channels. Now, I've dabbled with YouTube and video, and I haven't dabbled with video. I do a lot of video, and I have a channel, but in fairness, I haven't really done a lot with my YouTube channel, but maybe it's time to reintroduce it. If you don't have one, just get one started. It's really easy to do. There's lots of help on there about setting up a YouTube channel. So do it, because it's something that's really, really important. It's something that can make or break, depending on what niche or what marketplace you're in. But actually, it is something that I would recommend that you do, and do it today. You all know, because probably most of the people that are actually looking at this have come through my newsletter. And newsletter is such a big thing for me, and I know I keep saying it, but it is. And I run through Aweber, where my lists are segmented for greater response. And it's greater response to what I'm giving away or selling. Because there's no point me sending emails to people who aren't interested in social marketing, because I do other things. I do things like business development and personal development. So there's no point me just sending out to a catch-all email. I would suggest that you don't do that yourself. I would suggest that if you are going to go through Aweber or even MailChimp, because MailChimp's free, Aweber's a paid-for solution, even though you can get a trial. But think about segmenting your list, because the great thing about segmenting your list is you're only really sending targeted messages to the people who want to get them. You know, they don't want to get like an email that's got everything on there, because it just, that's when you get a lot of unsubscribes. So for me, basically what you've got to do is segment your newsletter. If you're only doing one discipline, if you like, if I was only doing social marketing, then all my list would just be in one list bucket, for argument's sake. But because I do lots of different things, I have them segmented. So look at your business and write down, just make notes on what it is that you actually do, because it's surprising how many people, until they actually start to write this down, don't realise the amount of work that they do and the amount of services that they offer. So you don't want to be sending an email out that reads like the Magna Carta, because people will just start to unsubscribe. So segment it and only send the information to the people who want that information, and that's really easy to do. So think about it and write it down. Just get it clear in your head. So it really does pay to think about your business as a media hub, and applying some of these principles can pay massive dividends for you and your business. And I think that's the great thing. It's the just applying some of these principles. You don't have to do them all, but what I would say is apply the magazine publishing principle. I think that's well, for me, I know that it's a winner, because that's the way that I run my website. It's really the way that I run my business. It does pay massive dividends, because you will get a lot more sign-ups. You will get a lot more people buying your stuff. It's just a fact. It's a fact of life that that's exactly what will happen. So once you've applied the principles, and once the dividends start to come in, and you realise that, you know, what I'm telling you is true, but then again, I have to say there's a bit of a rider on this, is that I'm just telling you this through the fantastic medium of video and the internet and everything else. I can't sit there and make you do it. This is something that you have got to do. And like my old dad used to say, you only get out what you put in. So I don't know you. I don't know your business. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if you're going to sit and watch telly all day. I don't know if you're going to be out walking the dog all day. It's totally up to you. I can only give you the advice. But my advice would be is to apply these principles and see the massive dividends that you and your business can get. So like I've said before, if there's anything that you want to ask me, put it in the comments box below. If there's anything that you want me to add to the videos, you know, if there's another video, I think I said in the last video that I was thinking about doing a video on newsletters and webinars. And if that's something that you're interested in, by all means, put it in the comments box. I'll see you on the next video, and until then, take care, and I'll see you soon.